Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Patefield. Just a few house rules before we start the webinar. So you will be muted throughout the webinar. We will open it up to questions at the end of the webinar, and you'll be able to ask any questions that you need. So what are we doing today? Me and Niall have had an interesting morning trying to get a demo to work. If you'd just like to introduce yourself, Niall, as well.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Niall. So I work for Camunda for the last 11 years or so, and I'm particularly interested in building agentic orchestration stuff with Camunda. So that's like long-running agents. And Camunda in general holds state and stuff, and we'll talk more about that later, I think.
Yeah, so Niall is also has a very interesting name as well in terms of his job title, which is a process alchemist. And that's certainly something that I'd like within my title as well, but I don't have
Yeah.
such a nice title now.
You know
Uh,
what? It was given to me as a joke, I think, by my boss. I think he just wanted to punish me. I had no say in this whatsoever. So,
yeah.
and yeah, the joke is wearing thin. So that's where I'm standing on that.
Yeah, I'm Chris Patefield. I'm the principal sales engineer for Liferay. At the EMEA level, I work out of the UK, and generally I build demos and I work with our partners such as Camunda. And it's been we had a very interesting morning trying to get a demo to fully work, but we'll pivot to doing a slightly different demo today, and then we'll be sending you a further demo after the call as well with the full process available. Okay, so why Liferay and Camunda? So let's start by clarifying that why both Liferay and Camunda are here. So this was a partnership that we announced mid last year, and it's already been consolidating into the market on both sides of the company. So both parties are really clear about the objectives of the union between Liferay and Camunda, and that's to facilitate the management and automation of processes from the beginning to the end. Okay. And you'll see in my demo a little bit later on how integration works with Liferay to backend processes and how we do the UI and we connect to those backend processes. And I think it'll become clear from the demo that a commander just brings that to a much higher level, okay, and allows us to fully do end-to-end processes that can often span a large amount of time or even a small amount of time, or can just start and end whenever you need to. Okay, so it's a real enlivening, should we say, of the integrations that Liferay can process for your business. Okay, so let's look at what the partnership is about. So while solid internal automation is fundamental today, uh, it's becoming increasingly an interconnected environment. We'll see later in the demo where local automation or container-based automation is inadequate. And that's what we were talking about just a second ago. So we're talking about agile collaboration, which is the fluid integration between internal automation and external interaction. And this is the key to driving growth and innovation. And in contrast to traditional approaches that separate internal and external processes, we advocate for a unified ecosystem that allows orchestrating processes beyond the organization, integrating partners, suppliers, and customers. Experience orientated process orchestration acts as an enabler, combining Liferay's intuitive digital interfaces with Camunda's expertise in enterprise automation. Together, Liferay and Camunda allow optimizing internal operations and building solid and dynamic relationships with the extended ecosystem. Okay. So it's really a lot about bringing the low code, no code capability of Liferay and integrating in that with the low code, no code process capability of Camunda. Okay, where those two things combined, and we're not saying that, anybody can just walk in and create a process from end to end. That's not what we're saying. Okay, but it's subject matter experts that can do that. Okay, it's business people with a slight technical edge potentially that can do that. Niall, is there anything that you wanted to add from that about from the Camunda side
Yeah,
about how
absolutely.
people can build those processes graphically?
Sure. So Camunda functions as a way of controlling and owning the state and state progression within an end-to-end process. Now, as Chris said, building those things is usually well, definitely in the past would have been thought of as something that's more of an architectural question, like how do we connect up our services together, tended to be one of those things that developers dealt with. But actually, with Camunda in general, with good orchestrators, there's a visual component using BPMN, business process model and notation, that allows you to really easily drag and drop little tasks and things, and then connect those to the various services. Now, that is really, really easy to be able to then, let's say, build a pre-existing connection and then be able to offer that to folks to want to build the processes, because one of the fundamental things about the processes are the tech folk don't usually know what they are. They're usually reading from some kind of description of the process. But if you have the process folks themselves being able to build these things, you get a more accurate process at the end. And so Camunda offers a way of building that, both pro code and low code, actually, depending on your preferences.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much. Okay, so we now want to talk about use cases. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll bring up a number of different use cases and we'll talk about those. So these are some cross-sector use cases that can be seen across various industries. Now, customer service obviously is something that we include, okay? And these can be queries, incidents, tickets, self-service, and they can be processed and they can be triggered by a web page interaction, a chatbot interaction, a contact center ticket potentially, and everything in between, okay? And as I said before, those processes, often do not end with the interaction between two entities. Okay. They will involve many different entities. They could be processed in a short time or long time, depending on what that back end process is. So through this partnership, we can provide a global end-to-end solution from logging an incident to the execution process, ending with resolution and customer notification. So this use case could also relate to document management, and we see that in a lot of Liferay use cases. Liferay has the DAM, obviously out of the box in Liferay. And this could be like one more step in a customer service use case, where the user must send a document or photo, for example. And we also see a use case for invoicing and collections here. We know that in certain businesses, a few days of delay can generate thousands or millions of euros in losses. So furthermore, nowadays, our laws are moving towards a mandatory electronic invoicing idea, which we're seeing a lot across Europe. And this is why a type of partnership between Camunda and Liferay can support the process of staying up to date with regulations and having a quick solution. And now I emphasize the word solution to tell you about specifically the benefits that this partnership offers. So we've listed some direct benefits of using Liferay and Camunda here. And if we start at the left side, these would be the ones more on the side of digital experience. The customer's interaction, evident improvements of 24/7 availability and total transparency and constant communication with the customer. We have clients with success stories in customer portals in diverse sectors who reported up to 750% increase in the number of completed requests or a saving of 20,000 euros per month in direct support costs. So that's what Liferay is bringing to the table. It's this ability to quickly and effectively build portal technology, which is going to allow you to be able to service a variety of different use cases, all with a leading digital experience platform. Okay. So all of what we've said only serves to affect the NPS level, and that is a level of engagement of the customer with the company, and therefore reduces the risk of customers leaving for another company. Without going any further, we have several success stories in this regard. And specifically in the finance sector, one of our clients mentions a drastic reduction in the risk of losing clients after implementing a self-service portal for their clients. I was actually speaking to another finance organization just yesterday, UK finance organization. We won't say who they are. Uh, and they were really talking about, going really deep actually into the customer experience and how important that was to them, and to have flexibility to kind of build things quickly in a low code, no code way, but then when they needed to pivot to more complex interfaces, maybe using React or Angular or the JS framework of their choice. We saw that with the customer yesterday, and we're speaking quite deeply with that customer now. We're going to be able to do building portals for them, which are going to integrate directly with Camunda at a later point in time as well. So with respect to Camunda, we have human intervention and task assignment, and so-called STP, which means straight through processing. I think everybody likes a straight through process, right? It starts, it gets, factored and changed and goes through the whole process and finishes in 10 seconds. Happy days, and that they can be extremely complex. They can be integrated into ERPs. They can be integrated with AI models, as Niall will show you a little bit later on. Okay. And they're really good. Okay. So, those processes without human intervention clearly allow for a reduction in human errors and operating costs. But also, FTEs can also be freed up as well, so full-time equivalents. And they can then work on more important tasks. And in summary, we understand that the partnership accelerates the time to market, improves customer experience, and frees the organization to focus on growth and value. Okay, so it's demo time now. Okay, so not the actual demo we were going to do originally, but a very similar demo. It will be a little bit more techy than we wanted to do today, but that's fine. Okay, we are going to send you a, shall we say, less techie demo. We're going to send it to all you guys as a video that you can consume after the webinar. But as Chris Bateford always does, we're going to go techie, so a little bit anyway. So I'm going to pull over here. Okay, so this is everyone hopefully can see my browser. We need to move from there, and we will go into this demo here. Okay, so this is a demo that we recently did for a UK partner of Liferay. They're actually a global partner of Liferay. I'm not doing advertising for Rico at all, okay, but they are a global partner, okay. And what I want to illustrate from this demo is really the kind of really sophisticated UI that Liferay offers, and kind of some of the features that Liferay offers, okay, and how you can use features in a B2B way and then orchestrate some sort of back-end process, okay. And this is actually in itself without Camunda, okay. And I want to show you the difference really between Camunda being in play and Liferay being in play with a back-end process which is essentially generated with code. It will do many of the same things that a Camunda integration will do, okay? But it won't be done in a way that's user-friendly and is scalable for an enterprise. So let's look at this demo, okay? So number one, the demo, as you can see, is quite pretty, right? Okay, it's, the UI is very nice, etc. And we've got this chap down here. He's called George Best, named after the footballer, of course. Okay, and he's going to log in. He works for a company called Farnell, and he's going to log in. Now, let's say that he is a sales dealer on behalf of Rico. So then what we do is we sign in, and we come in here like so, and we sign in, right? It's actually double L for that, and we sign in like so. And then we sign in, we're straight into a commerce style use case. Okay. And this is B2B commerce. Okay. And one of our other clients are also a reference customer for Liferay, our Hayes recruitment. So let's say that George is buying equipment for Hayes recruitment. Okay. So what he's going to do is he's going to like add things into his basket, isn't he? Okay. But the point is it's not just one basket, it's multiple basket, multiple orders, okay? And it's not so much that he's going to buy the kit, right? He's not going to, the kit, that's a techie phrase from years ago when you used to buy routers and things, kit, right? He's not going to like kind of, get involved in that purchasing journey. What he's interested in is actually financing this stuff and adding things and understanding what the finance arrangement is between Rico and his end customer. Okay. So in essence, it's B to B to B. Okay. So what we then do is we kind of like come here and we start adding things into the basket, all sorts of different things. We come up to the basket and we look at this value now. It's £171,600. Okay. He's got expensive tastes and he likes routers and he likes switches. Okay, fine. So then what we do then, and again, just showing you the UI in here and kind of how pretty this UI is and how it can be done and how we can, really filter down on these different facets here on the left-hand side. So you can bring that real rich experience of B2C into the B2B world. But then he comes in here and he gets his finance origination offers. Okay, let's just remember before we do that, 171,600. So we go to finance origination offers. Okay, 171,600. That's one of them. But he's also got multiple different orders in here and each order is then calculating a value per month. Okay, we get a APR on there. We get 36 months. I can recalculate. I can do all sorts of different things depending on what he wants to do for his customer, which is Hayes, right? So then what we then do from there is we go and change it, right? So we come in here and we kind of take a couple of these off like that, and then we go like that, and we submit. Okay, so we've now got 142,000 there. Okay, happy days. So then what we could do is we could just refresh this like this. Okay, and now we've got a different monthly payment. Okay, and also a different APR included there as well. Okay, now how is that working from the Liferay side? And we'll show you that. So what I can do, hopefully, go into here. This is my cloud console, by the way. So what I'm doing here is actually showing you something called Liferay Pass, which is our platform as a service. So we come in here and I'm going to need to sign into this. Again, showing you kind of, single sign on with Liferay and how secure things are. So we'll go and look the password that. Yep, it's absolutely like Fort Knox to get into this stuff. We go like that. Okay, so then we'll sign in, off you go. Okay, so I'm into my project. So we're going to go into this project here, and we're going to go in here like so, and we're going to look at services. I've got loads of different demos built out in this. So we're just going to go into this one here. And then we're going to go into, from there into the logs. Okay, so what is this? So this essentially is what we call a client extension in Liferay. And a client extension can be lots of different things, but this is a server-side client extension. So in the other demo, we have an object that exists in Liferay, which is an out-of-the-box object, which is called commerce orders. Okay. And what's happening is every time that commerce order changes, okay, any of its line items change, etc., then it creates these things that are called events. So the events kick off, and therefore then what happens then is that the events get sent to a service. Okay. And this is exactly the way that we integrate to Camunda as the process engine. Okay. But in this scenario, essentially what we've got is a node application with code, right? Now I'm a decent developer, okay? So I can be nice and friendly to people and put loads of different, loads of different logging in, okay? And, you can see what's happening behind the scenes, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, that's not an interface that you want to be giving to your end users who are managing processes, okay, and showing the status of those processes, right? It's either going to work or it isn't, and it's going to give you logs, okay? So what we do with Camunda is very different than this. We're still giving you the really nice interfaces and the customer experience and the digital experience, but we're handing off to Camunda in a better way. Okay. So we actually have another demo here as well, which is the Pillar demo, which is this one. Okay. And this is a banking demo. And this demo, when we send you the less techy version of the demo, okay, we'll send you this and you'll be able to see the end-to-end processes and you'll be able to give it to people within your organizations to show kind of it more from a less technical standpoint. Okay. But in this demo, you can kind of do various different things, right? I could then go into credit cards, for instance. I can come into credit cards and I can say, you know, learn more about this credit card, for instance. I'm not logged in at the moment. Okay. So this would be an onboarding style use case as opposed to the commerce style use case that we saw earlier. And then we go apply like that. Okay. And then we're just using Liferay's forms engine. I'll do one, but then I'll pass over to Niall in a second. So you can see actually the process and how the process works and how the integrations work on the Camunda side. Well, basically what we do is we come in here, we go like, whatever. Chris, I'm changing, let's say I'm the son of George Best. Maybe not a good example. And then we come in here and then we go, put an email address in. And we put a phone number in and we just put loads of jazz in. What we do here? There we go. Just a kind of form-based use case. Okay, we go on next. Choose you, right? And we've got these multi-step forms. Okay, so all these forms that you see here essentially built low code, no code. Okay, and after I've passed over to Niall, I might come back in and show you how those are built as well. It'd be kind of nice to see the editing interface. Well, then we come in here and then we go, look, I am employed and my employer is, let's say Liferay. We go next, well, have you got any more credit cards? Yes. And what's your pre-tax income? I'm a very poorly paid sales engineer. So we go 10 like that. And we go next, okay, and then we put an address in, whatever that. It's going to put some nonsense in there really, really quickly. Like so, we've got our multi-step form, okay? Basically, what's then going to happen is we're going to go submit on that, okay? And then that is actually what will kick off the process with Camunda, okay? And that's done via Liferay objects Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass over to Niall, okay? And then what Niall's going to do then is he's going to show you how those processes work in Camunda, okay? And then he's going to pass back to me if he can do if we get the buttons working. And I'm going to then show you kind of how the editing experience works and all sorts of things like that, and how you connect the objects up to Camunda itself as well. So over to Niall to show you how wonderful Camunda is.
Super. I'm gonna ask you to stop sharing there, Chris, and I'm gonna try and share myself. Let's see. Okay, cool. So now the when Chris actually kicked things off with that button, when went through that particular series of front ends, what it did was at the end, it actually kicked off a start event on a process. And this start event then went ahead and was told Camunda, hey, we got some data for you. Can you go ahead and run the process? Now then Camunda in this case acts as a center point for the source of truth for state. Now, this means that as we step through the process, we're able to see each thing we activate. So if we click on this, for instance, here is the exact thing
I think
that
you need to
Chris,
share there now. Yep.
I'm
Yeah,
sharing it now, don't worry. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's my fault. I was hogging the sharing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Carry
Cool.
carry on. Yep.
No worries. So we can see there, this is Chris's this is the process Chris has kicked off. We can see that it started here. It ran a bunch of different things. You can see that the integration is already kind of showing the two things that are kind of interesting here. The first is that we got some onboarding application got sent. And then here we actually triggered a DMN table. So this was the ability we use the data that came back from Chris's input in order to decide the risk level of this particular client, right? Now then Camunda is in charge of making decisions about what happens next. So it's the core decision maker of the process. This happens in two ways here. The first way is that the DMN table itself, as you can see, Chris, the sadly underpaid sales engineer, is a yellow risk. So he's not someone I want to give money to immediately. We can see that was given because he's employed. His liquid investment is 10, right? So if we go back we can then see the result of that DMN table is that the process then routed through this direction and then triggered to Liferay to tell Liferay, hey, we need more stuff for you to do because this is a yellow risk. So this is really important because this means that the stuff that Liferay is really good at remains there. And being able to trigger Liferay when necessary depends on Camunda and Camunda decision making, which means all decisions that are made about the process stay here, and all of the front end then gets sent. All the application stuff is all dealt by Liferay. At the moment, we would have like this state in our process, and so if we're wondering, like Chris showed earlier, hey, what's going on with my process? What has actually happened so far? What's the data? We don't need to look into logs in that case. We just need to go here to see this, but also want to see the data. It's all right here. There's the application that Chris sent in. We can actually see the various, I think his really unique address was also put in here, right? In here somewhere. So this is all that data is maintained and editable in here. Another nice thing is we can even reroute the process or re-trigger tasks in here if they're stuck or we need to reroute other things. So I'm going to pass it back to Chris then to talk through what happens next in Liferay.
Thanks, Niall. Hopefully now you guys can see my screen. So we now have a lovely lady called Sue Peters who has logged into this particular demo. And if I now go into notifications, okay, can you see there that I have got a new request pending to be approved by an agent and has been received from Chris Best, right? So I said that my income was low and therefore that then gets routed to a particular agent who can then they'll go and process that. So she'll then go into that like so. Okay, I'm not going to go through the full process, but she'll then use Liferay's documents and management to upload a classic car show document, apparently. And she can manually approve or manually reject or do whatever she needs to do. Okay, so she's involved in the process. Now, likewise, we can send this documentation via Camunda into an AI model as well. That's then going to allow us to do various different things. Understand the content of that document. Take some of the weight off Sue Peters, to kind of integrate manual checks by users, but also process agentic processing as well. Right. So we go approved on that, and then we're going to say submit documents, and then that will then kick off the process, and it will push that into Camunda. Okay. What I can also do as well, I can kind of sign out from there as well. And if I then come in here, and here's a user that kind of already exists, so I'm going to give everyone my personal email address, which I should really do, but it's okay. You can email me if you want to. Like that. We go in there, and then if I just go like test on that, and then we sign in, okay. And then, this would what would happen at the end of the process, right? So I've signed in, I've got my Pillar Rewards credit card that, Sue has kindly said that I can have. And I can then go in here and I can go into a chatbot, okay. And I can ask for a loan here. And if I ask for a loan, I can go, I would also like a loan for, I don't know, £15,000. So using a chatbot, okay, and let's put that in dollars as well, because that's what the demo understands. We go there and then we send. Okay, when I send this, what's going to happen is it's going to automatically integrate into Camunda, and then Camunda is going to do the agentic processing. So I go send on that, and then it will go. Niall, can I switch back over to you, please? And then
You
you could
certainly can.
show the chatbot side.
I'll see what I can do. First of all,
Okay.
actually, I'm going to show you something that's kind of interesting.
All right.
I think it's worth showing. I'm going
Shall
to,
I? I'm going to stop sharing then, Niall.
yeah,
This
please do.
free form. This is great. Right.
Yeah. So actually, one thing I really want to show is, because I think this is really, really important and really interesting. This is a really important part of organizing and owning state. This is the same process we saw before, right? And we see that this is predictable and it runs through here and then goes in, and eventually we land here in this sub process. Everything up to there has been nice and predictable. And one thing that's really interesting is that we have an error. This is interesting because this is one of the reasons why we were testing this out beforehand and we saw this error happen. And I think it's a nice opportunity to showcase the benefit of what it's like to have an orchestrator, because that error has been handled really, really well, right? So right now we have a process that's begun that is in flight, but we own the state of, and we can see that this is a sub-process, is a cross-selling agent sub-process. And if we go in there, we can actually see what the process has been up to since. And in fact, we can take a look and see, okay, we ran through here, we made some decisions. This is kind of an important sub-process here. Everything up until this point has actually been completely deterministic. The stuff that happens in here is non-deterministic, meaning that it can be triggered in any order, any number of times, and that's actually owned by the owned by the LLM. So the LLM decides what gets triggered in here based on the events in question. And then we go ahead and we continue. Once the LLM has done a bunch of things and decided what to do about this incoming request, it then joins back into the predictable process. And there's a really cool thing. It threw a little error right here. So and this error, we can even, because of the way that the state machine works and because of the way Camunda works, we can catch that error without losing all of the important previous information, right? Because we hold the state here. So we can first of all take a look at what the error is. We can see here, if I select it, there's the error, and we can see the specific stack trace. And we can even, and this is quite a fun thing, this is one thing we didn't actually try earlier, which is kind of nice, I think, in a dumb way. We're going to just pretend this is all fine, and I'm just going to move this token to the end. So what I'm doing is I'm going to say, you know what, this threw an error, but I don't need to run this. I'm just going to skip over this task and continue. And we can do that and complete. So what this is going to do is it's actually going to use token manipulation. This is also an important part of dealing with these kind of events. Now, the other process, there we go. So that process has ended and it's now no longer an error. We fixed the error by ignoring it. And that's how all errors should be fixed, in my opinion. The chatbot implementation is a little different. This deals with, and I don't have access to it right now, unfortunately, but that deals with taking in the request that Chris said and basically giving to the same structure. It kind of looks like this, where the structure basically takes in a request and then ends up being able to decide on what to execute in order to save that answer. Now, this probably sounds like an AI agent to you, but it's more important than that because the AI agent itself has all of these custom tools in here, and you can see how they're visually executed in order to give Chris the answer he's looking for. So I'll stop sharing and I'll pass it back to you, Chris, to show what happened next.
Thank you, Niall. It's like football. This we keep passing the ball to each other. Is good.
Yeah, one of us has to score a goal eventually. That's how football works.
Is that how it works? I didn't know.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Yeah, I'm more of a rugby
Yeah.
fan, so yeah, but
Yeah.
I
There you
think
go.
that's basically how it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think emphasizing the idea that we can utilize a process engine to have a nice standardized way of stepping through a process both predictably and not predictably, while being able to connect these the external systems like Liferay means that we're able to really easily integrate really complex processes in a simple way and also do a lot of complexity in the front end where that makes more sense. And so it's a nice way to sort of embrace the best of both worlds.
Thank you very much. Now, so just to kind of finish a few things, okay? So this is the Pilar demo, but this time I'm logged in as an admin. Okay. So then what I can then do is I can go to these things that are called Liferay objects. Okay. So these are essentially data placeholders, data services, which then integrate into backend processes. So if I now go into the onboarding credit card there, okay, you can then see the fields of onboarding credit card. Those are the fields of onboarding credit card. I can then, I'll show you a million different things in objects, and please ask me for a demo. Just ask us for a demo about anything, really. If you want to do it about experience, that's fine, right? But if I go into actions there and I go start onboarding credit card there, this is an action, okay? And then under action builder, so on after add, okay, so on after the record is created and it gets created by that form that you saw earlier, okay, I then call this URL, which is the URL of the onboarding process within the Camunda cluster that Niall just showed you, okay, and I pass in a secret, okay. We have connectors on both sides. We have connectors on the Camunda side and we have connectors on the Liferay side. And they're all pre-built. They're all available for you as customers to use today. Okay. But that is essentially how it works. And then these actions then do various different things. And this is how the two are connecting together. Okay. So Camunda that can then come back to us. They can change some data about that process and we can then wait for the next event. And we can then send that back in to potentially a different process flow within Camunda or indeed the same one. So you can resume, you can stop services on the Camunda side, resume, start, update, etc. So it's that true end-to-end low code, no code way of building out various different processes. So just from the Liferay side, my boss is going to kill me, but why not? We'll just completely break something. So we'll come in here. Okay, this is kind of like a dashboard. Okay, if I now kind of edit this dashboard like this, okay, and then I grab a container and like grab the container on the page there. Okay, so this is Liferay's low code, no code editing capability. So then I come in here and then I go, do you know what? I always like to put a container inside a container because I'm just that way. And then I go, I'll stick a fixed width on that. And then I say, look, let's put a form on there like so. So we want the form container. Grab the form container in there. Okay. What type of one is it? It's an onboarding credit card, please. like that. Okay. And then I can say, yeah, go on, I'll have all of these, whatever you want to put in here. Like so. Okay. Click save on that. Okay. And it will automatically build that form out for you. Okay. And you can kind of do weird things, right? Because it's a form builder. Right. So you can kind of go on a grid like that, stick a grid in there somewhere down here like that. Okay. And you get the idea, right? It's drag and drop. I can kind of move this. I can move this over here like so. You get the idea. Okay. So drag and drop integrated directly into the objects. So you've got the ability to do low code, no code when you want to. If you want to develop something and you want to use React or Angular or Vue.js and just connect to the objects over Liferay's headless APIs, then we can do that as well because we've got an OAuth engine that's built in. And that's actually how Camunda is also authenticating its request back to Liferay. It's doing it all over OAuth, and it's a really simple thing for us to do when we've got the connectors available on both sides. Right, I'm going to stop talking. That wasn't the demo we were going to do today. It was a more technical demo, but hopefully you got the idea. We'll send a new demo over to you very, very soon with a slightly less technical demo. And thank you very much. I'll just open it up to questions. And Alex, if you could ask the questions, if that's okay, and then we go from there. Okay.
Of course. Hi, guys. My name's Alex Morris. I'm a marketing specialist here at Liferay.
Yeah.
So I'll just be asking the questions to both Chris and Niall there. Question one from Mr. Gupta. Can you please elaborate on the agentic orchestration capabilities that Camunda has?
Sure. I can do this very, very quickly. So basically, the idea of Camunda's agentic orchestration capabilities are this. During the course of a process, a lot of things are predictable, but when things are dynamic, we basically allow you to create a sandbox in which you can add a bunch of tasks or sub-processes or events, and the ownership of that sub-process is an LLM that's connected to it. Now, what this means is we basically say, we connect to the LLM, which is any LLM you want, and we say, hey, here are the tasks that you have based on what you've modeled, and what do you want to do next? And then the LLM will pass back a list of tasks it wants to execute. And then the engine is in charge of running those. Now, why is that important? It's because we can run long running agents that can last for days or weeks. I even built one that lasts a year a little while ago. And that's really important because what we're doing is combining the abilities of an LLM to make the decisions about what happens next with the engine's ability to execute things in an event-based engine. So that's the fundamentals. There's a lot more to talk about when it comes to that, but that's the answer to the question. For more, you can do something like Googling, and you'll probably find a video of me explaining even this for even longer. So enjoy.
Any more questions?
There is one. And question for you, Chris, I believe. So I understand that there are native connectors between Liferay and Camunda. What type are they? Are they bidirectional or are they available on both platforms?
Yeah, so they are bidirectional. They're essentially webhooks. Okay, so Liferay will then send a request to the Camunda side, and then it's essentially like a reverse REST API. Essentially, then calls back to Liferay, so it can call back to Liferay at any point in time. Doesn't have to be a straight request and response. Yeah.
Mm.
And both sides have the connectors. Essentially, us sending the webhook request to Camunda, and then Camunda then replying back because it knows the status and there's the IDs that it needs to do to call back to Liferay's headless API, and then through essentially the event-based nature of Liferay objects, then we can then action more requests via the potentially the same endpoint or indeed a completely different endpoint. And the endpoints are then defined via the Camunda side. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another question. So what is the difference between the um, Non and Camunda in terms of functionality?
Sure.
Is
So
that
N8N is a really okay. I would call it. It's really really good for like micro integrations, right? If you've built an N8N agentic thing, it basically allows you to run an agent in a single request, right? So you connect some tools to the agent, then you send a request to it, and it needs to execute, and that's actually really really good for really small requirements, like being able to really quickly say, "Hey, can I get an agent to send an email?" And maybe it generates the text and then sends it and then returns back and tell you it's done, right? Here's the key difference though. NNN runs synchronously on a single thread, which means that every request you send to that agent has got about a 3 or 5 minute window, which it needs to execute all of its tools and finish before it rolls back. Camunda is designed specifically for long running executing agents, which means everything is asynchronous, which means every tool call is asynchronous, which means you can run tools in parallel. You can run 20 tools in parallel and then tell the agent as each one finishes. So the fundamental difference is actually around design for long running processes. So, and specifically for the ability to be able to run in production as well. We have a huge amount of features like process, like instance migration, like versioning and stuff that sort of anyone hasn't needed to care about because they're so short running. But the fundamentals of what Camunda and differentiates itself on functionality wise is we really only care about building way more complicated long running agents, and we have all the functionality to back that up. So it might be too much functionality for something that you might be building with NNN because NNN is kind of designed for sort of these micro
Mm.
orchestration use cases. So yeah, you got to choose your tool with the right use case. Is the idea with those two?
Yeah, I just add on to that as well that I've actually used both tools. So I've used Camunda and I've used N8N. Okay, and you know, there's a really good reason why Liferay chose Camunda, right? Camunda is an enterprise BPM, okay? Whereas I would say, very much like Niall said, NAN is more, a case of short-lived processes and more simple process orchestration. We wanted to, partner with a provider that has the same enterprise level credentials as Liferay. And the technology kind of sits well together as well. Underneath the hood, both are Java platforms underneath the hood. Okay, both are containerized, both are enterprise, right? And it just kind of fit really well with the way that we wanted to work with Camunda. And also, Niall's a really good guy as well, so we really like him. So kind of keeping it. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Talking about the next webinar. Okay. So my boss, Mike McCauley, from the general manager of the UK. I gave him the option of as being my boss. He was one of our bosses, many bosses, including Alex, on the call today. Yeah. So he's got a webinar coming up. So please join our next Liferay UK webinar. And it's the architecture of trust and it's managing complexity in the age of AI. So we'll be saying why your AI program is stalling and what's causing it. And he'll be talking about loads of different really interesting topics. He's a very good presenter. And hopefully his original demo works. And yeah, so thank you for your time. Really enjoyed spending time with you. Say goodbye now.
Bye bye now.
Bye bye now. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye
all.
folks. Cheerio. Bye.